Right now, the tennis world is in complete shock. And you had better get comfortable for this one if you haven't heard the news yet. The world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, who just gave it her all in the Australian Open final, has formally cancelled the Qatar Open. The worst part, though, is that no one is discussing it. There are other people vying for the hills besides her. Not just one player is having to make a difficult choice regarding her schedule. This is a full-scale evacuation, a mass desertion, and an epic tournament collapse. The Qatar Open is essentially falling apart right in front of our eyes. And the current situation has the potential to fundamentally alter the way the WTA functions in the years to come. Allow me to explain this whole pandemonium to you, because your jaw will drop when you see the whole list of names withdrawing from this tournament. Since Sabalenka is the most well-known, she frequently makes the news. When she was still establishing herself as a potential champion in 2020, the current world number one won this exact tournament. However, she is only the beginning. One of the most reliable performers on tour and presently rated 6th in the world, Jessica Pegula, decided she would much rather be anywhere but Doha. After taking one glance at the Middle East swing, Naomi Osaka, the 4-time Grand Slam champion who has been working to regain her best form, declared, "No thank you" to the entire thing. Madison Keys pulled out. Chikova Barbara is not present. Players like Marco Andrusova are taking time off to recover from a variety of illnesses, adding to the growing list of injuries. Tennis fans were eager to watch Leylah Fernandez this season, although she hasn't even begun her 2025 campaign yet. Is the issue becoming apparent to you? When one or two players have real ailments and must make difficult decisions, this is not a typical scenario. This is methodical. This is a calculated move. Half of the women's tour has decided that the Qatar Open is not worth their time, effort, or physical stamina. At this point, the Doha event organizers must be going completely crazy. They advertised this event by promising top-tier tennis with the best players in women's tennis. Fans who wanted to watch Sabalenka, Pegula, Osaka, and all these amazing sportsmen compete at the greatest level purchased tickets months in advance. The star power that was supposed to light up their courts helped them land broadcast deals and sponsorships. What do they have now? They are rushing to load the main draw with players who were once expected to be slogging through qualification rounds just to get in, because the competition is so empty. Give it some time to sink in. Players like Alexandra Eala, Emiliana Arango, Daria Kasatkina, Anastasia Pavlovna, and Kristina Ba are now receiving main draw spots at the Qatar Open, a top-tier WTA competition meant to highlight elite tennis. These players qualified not because they deserved it, but because there isn't anyone else available to take their place. Athletes who were never intended to be the main attraction at this event, despite their talent, now fill the seats that were once reserved for the best players in the world. That is in no way a criticism of these players. They compete at a very high level as professional tennis players. However, this isn't how a major WTA tournament should operate. Filling in the gaps in your lineup because everyone you truly wanted to attend chose not to show up is not how you create a spectacular event. It's amazing to observe the cascade of events here. And the first step is to comprehend what Sabalenka recently endured in Melbourne. Elena Rybakina's match at the Australian Open final wasn't your typical encounter. Sabalenka was completely destroyed by the bloody, emotionally painful fight. And this is what's so fascinating about it. Sabalenka made no effort to conceal it. She revealed her feelings in a very candid press conference after the game. And her openness provides us with a unique glimpse into the psychological and physical toll that professional tennis truly takes on these players. Sabalenka didn't respond like a typical corporate athlete when asked about her performance. Although she is happy of her effort and says she would learn from this and return stronger the next time, she did not claim that she gave it her best. Rather, she said something much more revealing and personal. She acknowledged that Rybakina played a fantastic match and that she gave it her all, but it was insufficient. She admitted that she felt as though she had missed a few opportunities. She shrugged, though, and went on to say, "That's just tennis. One day you're the loser, the next day you're the winner." That should give you a clear idea of her attitude. This season, I'm hoping to win more games than lose. I'm praying and hoping right now. That remark is really loaded, so let's stop right there. This is the top-ranked item in the world. A lady who has dominated the tour for years and won several Grand Slam titles. She is expressing her sincere wish that she wins more games this year than she loses. That isn't the self-assured champion rhetoric you usually hear from top athletes. That person is attempting to put herself back together while having her face captured on tape after having her heart torn out during a Grand Slam final. Vulnerability is that. That's honesty. That is what truly occurs when you give a tournament your all for 2 weeks, reach the final, and lose by a narrow margin. The journalist pushed further, asking Sabalenka when she planned to review her Australian Open performance with her team. Her answer was even more enlightening. She said she wasn't sure when she'd be ready to watch the matches back and joked with her agent about it, saying, maybe in a week or maybe in a few days. Whenever she feels like she can actually move on from this loss. Then she described her current emotional state as a combination of laughing and crying, calling it a hysterical moment that wasn't really productive. She was just letting everything out, releasing all the frustration and disappointment and anger that had been building up. She admitted she was upset with herself because, once again, she felt like she had opportunities but couldn't maintain her level when Ryback and cranked up the aggression. But then in a moment of self-awareness, she caught herself and acknowledged that overall she played great tennis in Australia, even in the final, and that she did her absolute best. Aryna was simply the better player that day. Simple as that. But here's the part that really shows you what elite athletes go through behind the scenes. The part that the cameras don't capture and the highlight reels don't show. Sabalenka said, "We'll speak with the team. How they try to avoid me, because it's not really healthy to be around me right now." Think about that statement for a second. She's literally warning people that she's in such a toxic headspace after this loss, that her own team, the people who are paid to support her and help her through difficult moments, are actively trying to stay away from her because being around her is psychologically draining. That level of transparency is almost unheard of in professional tennis. Most players protect their image carefully, offering sanitized versions of their emotions that fit neatly into the narrative of the resilient champion who always bounces back. Sabalenka is out here telling the world that she's crying, laughing hysterically, and that she's so unbearable to be around that her team is giving her space because they can't handle her current energy. This is real. This is what actually happens when you dedicate your entire life to a sport, fight your way through 2 brutal weeks of matches at a Grand Slam, and fall just short in the final. You don't just immediately flip a switch and become ready to compete again a week later. You're mentally destroyed. You're physically exhausted. You need time to process the grief, the disappointment, the what-ifs that keep replaying in your mind. You need space to be human, to feel your feelings, to let yourself be devastated before you can start rebuilding. So when you look at Sabalenka's withdrawal from Qatar through this lens, it suddenly makes perfect sense. The woman is emotionally wrecked and physically drained after Melbourne. She needs time to get her head right before she steps back on a tennis court. Playing another Heil tournament just days after experiencing that kind of emotional trauma would be professional malpractice. She'd show up unprepared, probably lose early, and dig herself into an even deeper mental hole that would take weeks or months to climb out of. Taking a strategic break to recover isn't weakness. It's smart management of a long career. But here's where things get interesting, and here's where the strategic calculations start to become obvious. It's awfully convenient that Sabalenka is only pulling out of a tournament where she's not defending significant ranking points and where she hasn't performed particularly well in recent years. Her best result at the Qatar Open was winning it back in 2020, but her performances since then have been underwhelming at best. She's not losing much in the rankings by skipping this event. In fact, she might actually be protecting her ranking by resting up and coming back strong for bigger tournaments later in the season where she has more points to defend. Now, I'm not saying Sabalenka is faking her emotional exhaustion or making up her need for rest. Mental health and burnout are absolutely real issues in professional sports, and anyone who's watched her career knows she's dealt with psychological struggles on court before. But it's also true that players at this level are getting increasingly strategic about which tournaments they play and which ones they skip. The WTA calendar is absolutely brutal, packed with mandatory events and premier tournaments that all demand peak performance. You physically cannot play everything at full intensity without breaking down. So players have to pick and choose. They prioritize the events that matter most for their ranking, their prize money, their sponsorship obligations, and their legacy. Everything else becomes negotiable. The Qatar Open clearly falls into that negotiable category for a lot of players this year. When you consider the timing coming just days after the Australian Open with no real recovery window, the location requiring extensive travel to the Middle East, and the fact that it falls right before Dubai, which is a bigger and more prestigious WTA 1000 event, it's easy to see why players are choosing to skip Doha. If you're going to show up to the Middle East swing, you might as well save your energy for the tournament that actually matters, the one with the bigger prize money, and the more significant ranking points, and the better competition. What makes this particularly painful for the Qatar Open organizers is that Sabalenka actually has history with their tournament. She debuted in Doha in 2020 and immediately claimed the title in spectacular fashion, announcing herself as a future star of the tour. That should create some loyalty or connection to the event. That should make her want to come back and defend her legacy there. But apparently winning a tournament 6 years ago doesn't create enough obligation to show up when you're tired, heartbroken, and emotionally destroyed from a Grand Slam final loss. Sabalenka doesn't owe Qatar anything just because she won there once upon a time, especially when her body and mind are screaming at her to take a break. The tournament organizers have to be in full crisis mode right now. They built their entire marketing campaign around having the top players in women's tennis competing on their courts. They sold premium tickets to wealthy tennis fans in the region who wanted to see world-class athletes. They secured lucrative sponsorship deals based on the promise of marquee matchups and compelling storylines. And now week by week, day by day, they've watched their draw get absolutely decimated by withdrawals. Their top seed is now, and she only got that position because literally everyone ranked above her in the tournament. Seeding pulled out. Their featured matches are now between players that most casual tennis fans have never heard of. The star power they were banking on has evaporated. From a fan perspective, this situation has to be incredibly frustrating. Imagine you're a tennis enthusiast living in Qatar or the broader Middle East region. The Qatar Open is one of the few chances you get each year to see world-class women's tennis live. You buy tickets months in advance, planning your schedule around the tournament. Excited to see Sabalenka and Pegula and Osaka, and all these incredible athletes compete at the highest level. Then one by one, they all withdraw. Sabalenka needs rest. Pegula has an injury. Osaka is skipping the entire swing. Keys pulls out. Shikova can't make it. Suddenly, the tournament you paid good money to attend looks nothing like what was advertised. You're watching what feels more like a challenger event than a premier WTA competition. At what point do you start demanding a refund? At what point does the tournament lose credibility? But flip the perspective to the players themselves, particularly someone in Sabalenka's position, and the calculus looks completely different. She just experienced one of the most emotionally taxing moments of her professional career. She's exhausted in every possible way. If she forces herself to play in Qatar while still processing what happened in Melbourne, while still in that toxic headspace she described, she's almost certainly going to lose early anyway. She'll show up unprepared, get upset in the first or second round by someone ranked outside the top 50, lose ranking points she otherwise would have kept, and compound her mental struggles by adding another disappointing result to the pile. The smart play, the professional play, is to recognize when you're not ready and take the time you need to get right. This whole situation exposes a fundamental problem with how the WTA structures its calendar. There are simply too many mandatory and premier-level events crammed into too short a time frame. Players are expected to maintain peak performance for essentially 11 months out of the year. The off-season is barely long enough to heal from injuries, let alone take a meaningful mental break and recharge for another grueling year. The result is exactly what we're seeing in Qatar. Players are burned out, injured, and mentally exhausted. So, they're forced to make strategic decisions about which tournaments matter and which ones they can afford to skip. The tournaments that end up getting sacrificed are the ones with unfortunate timing, lower prize money, or less prestige. EGA's Swiatek stepping up as the new top seed in Doha is interesting from a competitive standpoint. She's the world number 2 and arguably the most dominant player on tour right now. With Sabalenka and half the other top players out of the draw, Swiatek's path to the title just opened up dramatically. She has to be looking at this situation thinking it's a golden opportunity to collect some easy ranking points and prize money against diminished competition. But even that victory would feel somewhat hollow, wouldn't it? Winning a tournament because everyone else withdrew isn't the same as beating them head-to-head and proving you're the best player in the field. Sure, you get the trophy and the points and the check, but there's always going to be an asterisk in people's minds. Oh yeah, Swiatek won car, but Sabalenka and Pegula and Osaka weren't even there. The players who got bumped up from qualifying into the main draw should be thrilled though. Athletes like Alexandra Eala, Daria Kasatkina, Kristina Buxa, and others are getting an unexpected opportunity to compete at a level they might not have reached on their own merit. This could be a career-defining moment for some of them. A deep run in a premier event, even one that's been depleted by withdrawals, can completely change your ranking, your confidence, and your entire trajectory as a professional tennis player. Suddenly, you're getting into bigger tournaments automatically. Suddenly, sponsors are interested in working with you. Suddenly, you're a name that tennis fans recognize. That's the silver lining to all this chaos. While the tournament loses its star power and prestige, it gains unpredictability. You might see some unknown player go on an inspired run and become the next big story in women's tennis. That's the beauty of sports. When the favorites don't show up, someone else gets their moment to shine. Sabalenka's stated plan is to rest and recover and then come back for the Dubai Championships. Dubai is a significantly bigger deal than Qatar in terms of prestige, prize money, and ranking points. It's a WTA 1000 event compared to Qatar's 500 level. So, strategically, it makes perfect sense to skip the smaller tournament and save your energy for the bigger one. She's not abandoning the Middle East swing entirely. She's not hiding from competition. She's just being selective and intelligent about where she invests her physical and mental resources. That's professional sports in 2025. You can't do everything, so you prioritize what matters most. The Dubai tournament is going to be absolutely stacked with talent because it's one of those events where the appearance fees and prize money are substantial enough that players show up even when they're tired, even when they're dealing with minor injuries, even when they'd rather be resting. That's the reality of professional tennis that fans don't always see. Money talks. If the payout is big enough, if the appearance fee makes it worth your while, suddenly everyone finds the energy and motivation to compete. If the financial incentives aren't there, well, maybe you need to take a few days to rest and recover and focus on your mental health. What this entire Qatar Open disaster really exposes is the fundamental disconnect between what fans want and what players need. Fans want to see the best players competing at every tournament, giving maximum effort, creating amazing matches and compelling storylines. Fans want their favorite athletes to show up and perform like superheroes every single week. Players, on the other hand, want to have long, healthy careers. They want to avoid injuries that could derail their prime years. They want to win the tournaments that actually matter for their legacy and their bank account. They want to make strategic decisions that maximize their earning potential while minimizing the physical and mental wear and tear on their bodies. Those two sets of desires don't always align. And when they conflict, the players are going to choose their own well-being every single time. The WTA needs to fundamentally rethink how it structures the calendar, or situations like Qatar are going to keep happening. Tournaments are going to keep getting gutted by withdrawals because players are exhausted and injured and mentally drained.